I'm leaving Monado with 4 liters of water, which have all been grabbed from the bathroom sink of the toilets behind me. 60-kilometer water carry to the next guaranteed water source. Just left the reserve I've been walking through, and now I'm on new ground. I have never walked here before. I'm finally not just rehashing my old steps. So I'm going to continue down the trail, see where it leads me. This is very exciting for me because I have not done very much research on the Lavender Federation Trail. I don't really know what's ahead of me. I'm following a GPS track, and that's pretty much all I have. So I'm psyched about this. Check this out. That's Mount Barker and the Adelaide Hills over there, nice and green and forested. And that's the endless flat Murray River Basin over there. And I'm just walking right between them. So as expected, I'm now following a fence through farmland. It's a pretty classic thing for the Hyson Trail to pull. And I'm not at all surprised that this trail does this, considering that it's made by the same guy who made the Hyson. It's still kind of scenic. I'm pretty happy to be getting away from the roads. Lots of flies though. You know, if the farming rocks, the harvest has been extremely productive this year. I was just following some trail markers through the middle of private property. Wasn't really sure what the trail was doing there or why it was leading me there. And then I just came across this big old smokestack in the middle of nowhere. Old abandoned mines. This is style number 11. We'll see how long I can keep count. I think the Hyson Trail is infamous for having like 500 of these. The sun and the flies have really gotten the best of me. I'm wearing this raincoat to protect myself from sunburn, which I have now. And I just decided that I need to rest. I cannot walk at 3 p.m. I've got to wait until 4 or 4:30 before walking again. Which means I'll still do a 40-kilometer day. I think 40 kilometers is going to be my general rule for myself. I'm going to try and wake up early from now on and get to camp relatively late, and then just do long rests in the middle of the day, because 30 degrees in this kind of weather and in this place with the sun just going straight out of the sky with no moisture to stop it is very different from the sun I had on the Appalachian Trail. Well, to its credit, this trail is pretty scenic, but it's still bloody hot. Despite going through grazing land basically the entire time on this trail, these are the first sheep I've seen. Or the first animals other than kangaroos or sleeping lizards. I think I've been passed by like 2 cars on the roadwalks. And I have seen 0 hikers, which doesn't really surprise me. I think this place only gets hikers every like 2 or 3 weeks or so. This trail is very much geared towards section hikers rather than through hikers. It says that very explicitly on the website. It's really not a through hiking trail, and the lack of designated campsites really reflects that. So it's kind of funny to think about. It's about 2 weeks before this trail closes for fire danger season, so I'm pretty definitely going to be the last person this year to through hike it. But I might actually be the first person this year to through hike it too. Don't really know about the numbers, but I can imagine it cannot be more than around 3 or 4 per year. Guy in a ute just gave me water because I'm kind of running out of it. He doesn't know it, but he's my first trail angel on this trail. Just passed by the guy who gave me water again, and we had a chat. Turns out it's pretty common that people actually use this trail, people bike on this trail, people hike on it. Then again, this is the country, so people using it a lot probably does translate to about 1 person a week around here. Very strange, dramatic weather patterns out here. It's the kind of thing I kind of wish I had a better camera for. Seems like it's really dumping buckets out there, but then the whole storm seems to kind of lose its mojo out here. There doesn't really seem to be any rain. And that seems reflective of a lot of storms in this area, because that's forested, that's green, that's brown. It really is that sudden a change. And there's even sunshine out there. There's more abandoned houses than standing ones in these hills. I'm pretty sure it's pretty easy to overestimate the capacity of this land. I've rock climbed a couple times at this place called Rayton's Gap, which I think is very close to this place. I haven't really seen it from the trail, but just so you know, there are 20-meter cliffs in this region. It's not just small rocks like this. On the website, this section was singled out as being relatively tough, which really gives me some confidence that this trail will be easy as piss. Welcome to the top of Mount Beevor. I think maybe the second tallest mountain on this trail. Only about 500 meters though. There's not really any mountains on this trail. And the views are so good that I think this calls for a drone shot. I have not seen views this good from a lot of hills in the Adelaide Hills. I think this is one of the better views out here. For the South Australian hiking nerds, below that thundercloud, that's just the Murray River Basin. That's where I came from, more or less. Out here, way out there, those on the horizon, poking out of the horizon actually, are the Barossa Ranges in the Barossa Valley. And directly underneath the setting sun is Mount Lofty, which is the tallest mountain in this range. I didn't think I'd end up night hiking, but it kind of feels nice to. Temperatures are good, weather's great. Morning! This is the place I camped. There's the impression where my tent was. And behind me is the very first creek on the entire trail, which actually has water in it, which is kind of a sign of a landscape that is getting wetter and wetter as I go further up the hills. Although I'm kind of at the brow of the hills right now, so I don't think it's going to get much wetter than this. I'm pretty sure the trail is going to stay at around this level of wetness, this level of elevation. Sometimes it's hard for me to remember just how big these trees are. They look deceptively small. But I just have to remember that that tree right there, for instance, that's bigger than any oak tree on the entire Appalachian Trail. These things are giants. It's funny that while I've been walking through these fields, I've been seeing far more kangaroo than actual livestock. Like that one. Okay, that scared me a bit. I just saw this thing as I was coming right near to it. Massive snake. I don't even know what kind it is. That would do some real damage if it... Oh. Yeah, that would do some real damage if it bit me. I don't think I've ever seen a snake that looks quite like that before. That looks a bit scary. Yeah, that would have been a hospital trip if I got bitten by that. Good I have some decent reception on this trail. Welcome to Tunkillo, my first town on the Lavender Federation Trail. There's really not much here. I get the impression that there isn't really any business. So I'm just going to stop at the bathrooms and move on. Well, there really are no businesses here, and this town looks effectively abandoned. That being said, there are public toilets, which means that this is the very end of a 60-kilometer long water drought on the trail. You know, after having talks with people here and having visited more of the hall behind me, this is actually a really sweet community. Really nice place. Very small and kind of dying community, but a pretty nice community nonetheless, and it's very clear that people are trying to maintain it and hold it up. There's even a farmer's market happening here in a few weeks, so that's pretty nice. Well, there's the trail. Started walking there, made it all the way there, then backtracked and went all the way up here. And I think my night's goal is Springton right there. That's the first town on the trail with a pub. And I still have a fair while to go to the end. But it's a pretty short trail. It's been really weird walking across these plains. Just endless amounts of sheep and rocks and not much else. It's starting to rain, which is kind of annoying. So in case you're interested, pretty sure that's the start of the rock climbing area of Rachen's Gap just down there. It's really not that far. Thank you to the monastery for letting me walk through what is presumably your land. Okay, so this is Springton, my very first proper trail town with a store and everything. Very small place still, just this one store and the pub. And I am headed straight to the pub because I desperately need it. I might actually stay there for the night, but we'll see. Morning, this is a bit of a time skip. I rocked up at the pub and then I started being handed free drinks after I was telling everyone what I was doing, and then I got a place at this tradie's house. So now I'm just sitting at the oval this morning because I'm just kind of waiting for things to dry out a bit before starting to hike. It's really cold. It's like, I don't know, 12 or 13 degrees or something compared to 30 or 40 degrees yesterday. I waited until 10 a.m. for it to stop drizzling and it hasn't stopped, so I just figured I'm gonna have to go for it. About 40 kilometers to do today, so I might end up finishing in the dark, but it's gonna be fine. So many rocks. This was very unexpected. Lots of houses like that in the hills. These cows are guarding my further progress. So I need to get into that gap at the gate. Come on guys, cooperate. Good calves. Good calves. Over the last few hours, the hills and my style of walking has changed a lot, which has been pretty interesting to track. So it's really about the hills kind of smoothing out, getting lower, getting flatter. And it's a real sign that I'm kind of leaving the Adelaide Hills, which I've been kind of following the very far eastern edge of for a while. And now I'm headed into the Barossa region, the Barossa Valley, this wine growing area, which I'm also on the very eastern perimeter of, which is why there's no wine growing around here. So it's an interesting change. It's making for more flat hiking, more hiking on roads like this. A major problem I've been tackling this afternoon has been swollen feet. My feet have gotten really swollen towards the end of the afternoon and really started feeling very sore, which is just making it mentally a fair bit harder to go on. So if this does continue for, let's say, tomorrow, then I'm probably going to try and adjust my schedule. If you remember, I followed the Kidman horse trail into Ichunga, and there's the Kidman trail again. I started my day at an oval inside a little shelter they had there, and I'm finishing the day at another one. I'm just hoping my feet feel better tomorrow because they're in pretty bad shape right now. Welcome to the tiny town of Makota. Very similar deal to Tungkilo. It's really just one very small post office, which is probably open like 1 hour of the day or something. And then otherwise, absolutely no businesses. Maybe there used to be a pub. Maybe it was that building, but either way, if there has been one, it's closed down. If I was in the deep south, there would be like 5 churches lined up and down Main Street in a town of this size. But as it is, there's apparently 2 churches, and they're apparently very nice and very, very old, but they're pretty far outside of town. And I cannot imagine that they get a huge amount of attendance. It's possible that they're both closed. I don't even know. There's the primary school. Must be a really nice place to both the kids who go there. Damn, it's the default Windows wallpaper. Just walked a few minutes out of town And how cool is this? Apparently it's called the Shannon Mausoleum. At least that's what I saw online. Kind of a bizarre structure. I wish I could launch my drone, but this does seem to be private property, so I won't. Yeah, cool stuff. I have no idea when I actually hit 9,000, but it's somewhere around here. I've decided to count this as 9,000. I'm going to eventually count up these kilometers in a more uniform way and find a more exact number before I reach the 10,000 mark, though. The landscape is definitely drying out as I'm getting further from the Adelaide Hills, from the cloud catches, which I'm not too surprised about because the mid-north is pretty dry. Now rock hopping through the pretty surprising Murchison Gorge. I didn't really expect the gorge walls to be this big, even though I knew it was coming because of the track notes. And also the very first flowing creek I've seen on the entire Lavender Federation Trail. I've heard there's another one of them that's coming up. There's a snakeskin, I have to watch out for them. Anyway, I've heard there's another one that's coming up later today, so I'm going to restock my water there. But this is a nice, cool spot. You know, there's a lot of bad stuff I could say about this trail with all the road walking and all the repetitive scenery, but this section has really surprised me. Just these brilliant wide open landscapes, tons of kangaroos, which I haven't really got on camera because they're pretty far away, but I can see them pretty well. Lots of these rocky gorges, and basically no road walking for the last, I don't know, 15 Ks or so. It's been great. The trail's taking me to some pretty interesting places. There are the vaguely forested hills behind me, and out there is just a massive, endless, completely flat plain. Flies are completely atrocious. There's just hundreds of them flying around. I can barely be bothered to keep them out of my eyes anymore. Well, this scenery is different. Not too great with the flies, but there is some water, so I'm going to use that little pond as a water source. That's the last water source in about 50 kilometers or so. So I'm definitely stocking up to max. I have a water filter to filter that stuff, by the way, but have a look at how dry this landscape is, how rocky it is. This is something pretty different I wasn't quite expecting from this hike. Kind of funny to see that someone's living inside a church. An old church, according to that sign right there. It closed in 1958. So this is Dutton, and it's even more of a vague nothing than the other two towns we passed through. 3 towns, sorry. And there's even a paddock in the middle of town. It's a very small place. There don't seem to be any services of any kind here, not even toilets. So I'm just going to move on. I'm pretty happy that I got where I did, because the next town is about 40 kilometers away. There's the general store in Dutton. Closed down about 70 years ago and turned into someone's house. Well, it's too windy to launch my drone up here, but the walking was crazy and the views are just otherworldly. The way you can just see forever onto that horizon and down onto the hills I climbed up to get here. And way out in the other direction, the way I'm headed, out to Uganda. It really is kind of hiking I've barely done before. Not like the best parts of the mid-north on the high side. This descent was a bit more than I was expecting. I've had so many of these really gentle descents on the trail and it's been very good to me, but now I just have this steep rocky thing straight down a fence. That's a wombat right there. Hey, buddy. Yeah, nice big hairy wombat. I knew they were around because I saw their holes. The wombat holes are mostly in those pits. They're kind of everywhere around here. I've got a call at some point, so this is where I'm ending the day, at this bend in the side of this creek, which is dry as mid-north creeks pretty much always are. It's kind of a nice sunset happening out there. Today has actually been really brilliant. I have to say, I really didn't expect any day on this trail to have this little road walking. There was essentially no road walking for like 40 kilometers or whatever this day ended up being, which really surprised me. The scenery was very consistent. This was definitely the best day on the trail, right up there with days on the Heisen. And sure, I don't have a hut on the end like I do on the Heisen, but I really got some nice adventurous stealth camping to do, which is almost as good in some ways. And I'm looking forward to seeing what tomorrow will bring. I feel like disaster has struck because I started drinking some of the water I had in my water bottles, which I collected at that water hole, and it was very, very salty. I'm not too concerned about the salt, but I'm more concerned about what could be in there considering there was so much salt. I'm thinking there might be a lot of pesticides in there, a lot of runoff from the nearby farms, which I didn't really expect. And as a result, the water I'm carrying right now, the only water I have, could be poisoned. So I'm very much hoping that I will be able to get some more water before going into town. I'm going to make that walk into town as short as reasonably possible. I think I'm going to take some unplanned shortcuts around a few of the more loopy bits of the trail. And yeah, just make sure I don't have to dehydrate or drink what could be some poison water. The trail doesn't go the way I'm going. The trail actually goes to the hills behind me. But after that, the trail kind of loops around and does a U-turn and goes back the way it came, back to the road I'm going to now. So I figure I might as well shortcut things and just head straight to the road I'm going to now and follow that north. And that road does lead all the way to Ichunga, but I probably won't follow it the entire way because it seems like a bit of a busy paved road. These are the first houses I've walked past all day. I could say hi and ask for water, but that's town right over there. That's Udunda. So I think I'll walk maybe about 4 more kilometers over this next hill over there and get to town, fill up there. I just passed through the saddest caravan park on earth. It had like only 2 sites which were full. It only had like 6 or 7 sites total. And a pool and a gym which seems to be going completely unused. One of my favorite things about these small towns in South Australia is the silo art. Because the silos are pretty much the first thing you see as you come into town, like the most prominent structure there. People tend to try and paint them up, make them look interesting with murals. Sometimes they use them as screens and do projections on them. This is easily the biggest town I've been to so far, not counting Murray Bridge on the trail. And it's also easily the biggest town on the entire trail, not counting either of the 2 termini. So I'm going to do my only restock on the entire trail here. It should only be a very small restock, like breakfast and lunch for about 3 days. That's pretty much it. And then I'll keep on walking. Well, this town has really impressed me. It's quite nice. As with a lot of towns in this region, very old town, lots of old buildings, kind of a sleepy feel to it. It is Sunday, so there's really not much happening around. People just doing the grocery shopping because there is a grocery store in town, the only grocery store on trail. The bakery's closed, unfortunately, because it's Sunday. I didn't really time that very well. This feels very much like the Hyson Trail now, because the Hyson Trail follows a lot of structures like this old rail bed. There's another ruined homestead. Right, guys, I won't bother you. There's Udunda fading away in the distance. Still looks pretty close for a place that's so far away. I've noticed that a lot in these regions. Everything looks deceivingly close by. Well, it's just past sunset and I've got to stop eventually, so I decided I'm probably going to stop along the side of this road here, just at this patch. I usually like camping a bit further away from the road, but I've been walking along this road for about 2 hours, and I'm still going to walk for another 1.5 hours down the road. Nice sunset, very nice sunset from here. I'm just hoping it won't be too windy in this place, but there's no wind right now. And this should be a good enough, flat enough spot for me tonight. Well, this is just nice. I think this is the second or third bench I've seen that's specifically dedicated to Lavender Trail hikers. So for pretty much the entire trail, actually the entire trail, I was walking through areas I've never walked to before, and I've never actually stopped at. Like, I had driven through a few of those places before, but they were basically completely new to me. But now here I have made it to the Hyson Trail, and I walked the Hyson Trail a few years ago. It was actually the first video on my entire channel, if you want to check that out. And as you can see, there's the Hyson Trail markers, there's the boards with info about both trails on each side. It looks like progress on this trail was a lot more consistent than I had thought. It seems like they just added a bit every single year pretty much. And so it was finished in 2017, 2018. So one interesting highlight here is the very first and very last official trail campground on the entire Lavender Federation Trail. It only exists because the Hyson Trail has campgrounds everywhere, and one of them is luckily in this pass in a shared section of trail. So I can go and relax. It's a bit too early to camp, but I can go and relax and get some water before continuing. It's one of the worst campsites on the Hyson, but it's nicer than I remembered. A bit of a slanted space to camp on. But there's a water tank, small shelter, and a platform as well that sometimes people camp on, sometimes people just use for cooking. I've spent so long walking up and down these hills, kind of contouring all over the place on this huge set of hills kind of spilling down into the valley in the east. But now I'm just walking west and I'm walking to the next range and climbing over it, walking to the next one. Makes things so simple, you know? The Lavender Trail has gone through a lot of these road reserves. These small kind of thin corridors which were made for roads and kind of planned for roads back when people thought that the population of this region would keep on growing. And it's still available if the government wants to build a road through here, but it's mostly now for just a bit of conservation and also to allow trails like this to exist. Just past this tiny cemetery on the way into walking into another town with nothing in it, Waterloo. And I read the sign that was at the cemetery, and apparently there's a lot of unmarked graves there, so people don't really know exactly who was buried there. Almost done with this bloody trail. We'll reach Manura tonight, I think. Manura is where I'm going to stay, so just over to the west. This is the biggest highway between Adelaide and Brisbane, which are, you know, two of Australia's biggest cities. So it does have a bit of freight and a bit of traffic on it. But still not very much. It's still pretty quiet, still pretty road walkable. I've definitely had much more busy road walks, and many of them in Florida, for instance. So this isn't actually too bad. Welcome to Manura, another town with nothing in it, apart from the public toilets, which are very much appreciated, and also the Oval, which I think I'll camp at, like I did the other two. That's a nice old church. According to the sign there, they have mass here every 2 months. This is the last town on this whole trail before Clare Valley, and the last town on this whole trail I haven't been to before, because I have been to the whole Clare Valley on the Mawson Trail. Apparently there's a nice hedge maze here, so I'm seeing how easy that is to access. Looks like it's closed though. Well, just like all the other towns on this route, this place is definitely more legacy than present. That being said, this feels a bit more alive than pretty much any other town I've passed by or through on the Lavender Federation Trail. I think it's because I'm approaching the wine region, so I've been seeing these wineries crop up and these businesses supporting them. So it's really a change. It's getting a lot more fancy. Just climbed down Horrocks, the very last range I had to climb before getting to this valley. And there it is, that's the Clare Valley. That's the end of my hike pretty much. I mean, I need to keep on going up that valley to ultimately finish it, but I've either cycled or walked just about every step of the trail from the base of this valley onward. So it's practically over. Bloody flies. So, I just reached the Clare Valley, as you can see by all these vineyards around me. I finally made it. I'm in a very somewhat familiar place. I have biked on the bike path just over there, so I know where I am. And I've decided that I'm going to go south to Auburn instead of north to Clare. And the way I'm going to do that is go by the Clare Valley Wine and Wilderness Trail, which is completely brand new. I think it was finished maybe 2019, 2020. Well, this kind of hiking was slightly unexpected. Hey guys, please don't be too scared. That's a very woolly sheep. I've noticed that a lot of these arrows seem to be kind of incorrect. Like this one just points up a field toward nothing, and I can see another arrow in front of me, so I'm pretty sure that one's just wrong. This is very much a constantly changing trail. I never really know what I'm going to do in the next 10 minutes. Nice view. It's getting a tiny bit rainy, which I would take over beating sun in 30-degree heat any day, to be honest. One of the funniest things about this trail is its insistence to go through the front of all these wineries, because the trail is kind of a way of promoting the wineries in this region. This is Auburn. It's the greenest town I've been to on this hike. It's also the biggest town since Mary Bridge, I think. The one that looks the most alive. So for a visual on what tomorrow's plan is and what the next few days' plans are, I walked in from this direction. I camped here last night, and I went over to Mintaro, to Watervale, and then down to Auburn. So I just made this ridiculous loop. But it was in order to get to Auburn and get to this very nice caravan park. And now what I'm going to do is, there's a loop which goes all around this valley. I'm going to head up about half that loop to this region, more or less, camp there. And then the day after tomorrow, I'm going to keep on heading down the loop. I've already done this section of the loop, so I don't need to do it again. Instead, I'm going to circle around and head into Clare on the Lavender Federation Trail in order to finish it. So it's going to be a bit of a complicated walk, but it's going to mean I get the loop done and get the Lavender Federation Trail done. Finally, an actual meal. So because I'm in town, the plan was to send out an update or new vlog for my YouTube channel. But of all the places on my entire hike, this is the very first one in which I have no reception. So I cannot actually send out anything. The Lavender Federation Trail is fantastic with reception. With Telstra, you have reception across the entire trail pretty much. Maybe not some bottoms of valleys in some places, but like generally speaking, reception everywhere. But here, I kind of ran out of luck. Not very much reception, even with Telstra here in Auburn.
Just woke up at the caravan park to this. A whole bunch of earwigs sheltering inside the fire of my tent.
Minor problem here. I had some issues charging this thing, the power bank. I think there was a problem with the charging cable. I plugged it in and it started charging as normal, but then it just stopped and didn't charge at all overnight like I was expecting it to. So as a result, I'm stuck here until that thing properly charges. I think I fixed it now. I think it is now charging, but it's going to take a while for me to charge it to a point where I feel like actually leaving this place. I'm not going to walk that far, of course. I'm only going to walk for about 2 days before being picked up by the bus at Clare, but I do want to make sure I have enough charge in my phone to film and navigate and reach my destination. It's nice that they call this the Clare Valley Wine and Wilderness Trail, but it really isn't a wilderness trail. This is about as wildernessy as it gets, and I think I'm just steps away from farmland just over there. It's much more of a wine trail. I left that caravan park pretty late, and my nice destination, which is Spring Gully, is still a good walk away, but luckily it's basically all down this one road, so I can kind of walk on autopilot. So as you can see, I kind of finished that back and forth to Auburn, and I'm back on the Lavender Federation Trail, which is pretty rewarding. I'm only going to follow it for as long as the Wine and Wilderness Trail follows it, but it means getting another piece of this trail done, even though I actually already did this section on another hike about a year ago. Right, the sun is just setting right now, and I'm getting pretty close to the Cascades, which is a very popular walking area. I don't really want to camp near there, so instead I'm going to just camp here among the grass. So I started a bit late again, but today's objective is to do a 45-kilometer loop around the town of Clare. And because I started late, that means I can do a fair bit of that later in the day when it's a bit cooler. Before that, I do have to make it through these temperatures. And then tomorrow I will just walk 5 kilometers into the town of Clare and take the bus out. The bus only comes 3 times a week, so it's an important thing to time. So this is about as interesting as the trail gets from a natural scenery standpoint, this Clare Valley Wine and Wilderness Trail. It's not that bad, but it's really just, the trail is really more about the vineyards and stuff than it is about cliffs and gorges like this. I just reached the Duns Range, which is the kind of the meat and bones of this afternoon. I'm gonna be following this thing for around 2 hours or so. Nice views. This place is a bit exposed to sunlight. So I had no idea any huts of any kind existed on this trail, the Clare Valley Wine and Wilderness Trail, but here it is. And it's brilliant. It's a really sweet hut. I don't think it's made for overnight stays, but there's a bathroom. It looks quite well made. All this cleaning stuff, this table, the logbook, all this you would normally expect in a Hyson Trail hut. I really didn't expect this to exist. Well, it's a bit rocky, but I reckon this range might be my favorite part of the entire Clare Valley Wine and Wilderness Trail, now that I've effectively finished it. Just with all these wide open views in both directions, it's just a great walk. Okay, I think that arrow right there might be the first and last marker on the Clare Valley Wine and Wilderness Trail. You can see the top half of it's yellow. I've noticed that this seems to be a new bicycle path. I think that they're trying to make a bicycle version of this, although they've only completed maybe one stage or half of one stage of that bicycle path, if that's the case. But anyway, this is the principal trailhead of the Wine and Wilderness Trail. It is a loop, so technically everywhere is the start and end point, but this is kind of the main one. This is the end of section 6, start of section 1. Happy to have made it. I haven't walked every single bit of the loop because of the way I've done it. I've done it in a few different loops over a few different trips, well, 2 different trips. So as a result of that, I have skipped out on the first, I think, 5 kilometers of section 5. But that's not really much of a problem. I consider myself having done the loop because the stuff I missed is really just road walking. Impressions, Dun Range was awesome. Dun Range really surprised me. That was probably the highlight of the entire trip. Spring Gully was nice as well, but you can really just go on day walks on there. That's not really connected to the loop, really. Yeah, it was a good time. I'd recommend it, especially if you want to go wine touring and hiking at the same time. There's caravan parks like the one that's kind of behind me right now, where you can actually stay for the night if you want to break it up. But yeah, there it is, 100-kilometer wilderness trail, completely finished now. Now I'm just going to walk back to the Lavender Federation Trail and finish up the part I haven't done yet. So, I think this is a public road reserve, so I should be fine camping at this spot. Just over there is private property with a house over there, so I do need to watch out for that. But this spot is nice. There's a good sunset. Arrived at just the right time. It's about 5 kilometers walk away from the center of Clare via the Lavender Federation Trail, which is just over there. So I think this should be all right. Well, for some reason I forgot to set my alarm, or it just didn't go off. And I am now walking into Clare a bit later than I was expecting. I did do the fastest pack up probably of my entire life. I went from waking up to being fully packed and hiking in 10 minutes, which I'm actually pretty proud about. I'm still going to make it to Clare with about half an hour to spare, but it's still a bit tighter than I would have liked. This is Neagle's Rock at the outskirts of the town of Clare. This sign marks the northern destination of the Lavender Federation Trail. That's it, I finished the entire thing now. It's been a solid journey. I cannot really talk too much about it because my phone is almost dead. It's at 5% right now, so pretty soon I've got to turn it off and go take the bus out of here. Bus is coming in about 15 minutes.